Next, we have Deepak Sharma. He's the Chief Digital Officer of Kotak Mahindra Bank, right? From what little I know of Deepak, he likes to be unpredictable. So I have no idea what's coming next. He likes to create impact, of course, deep impact, in fact. He says, I want to know what I'm doing to do and what difference I'm making. So, अगर मुझे पता नहीं है मैं कर क्या रहा हूँ तो मैं कर क्या रहा हूँ. And I love that thought. I mean, we should know what we're doing every moment of our lives. And he's just completed a UPI 2.0 hackathon where we had 178 startups. That'd be interesting for many of you here, where he had a sandbox with open APIs to all of them. Uh, he's responsible for digital strategy, transformation, payments, channels, platforms, looks after the innovation lab for Kodak with AI, ML, IoT, blockchain, RPA, API, lending, payments, investments, institutional, customer segment. I'd let him do the talking. Deepak, stage is all yours.
Thanks, Sunil, for the wonderful introduction you made. I guess that was also unpredictable. I didn't know how you were going to introduce me. Uh, so I think the topic is on how do we create an open innovation and collaboration ecosystem. Now, I think the important part here is ecosystem more than anything else, and that's what I'm going to dwell more on. But before I start, I just want to get quickly some sense by show of hands. How many of you are startups or fintechs in this room? Okay, that's about 30%. And how many of you are enterprises who work with some sort of startups in your area of work? Okay, so that's an equal number. Okay, great. So I think as we spoke, and I think I heard the previous two presenters, so I'll try to keep some of the stuff out which already got shared. But one thing to start with, I think today the data asymmetry is getting dissolved, and every company around us is today becoming a data company. Recently, I was told by CEO of Foursquare that a laundry guy said that, hey, listen, I know what kind of labels come to me for dry cleaning. Is there any way I can monetize that data? And he said that was a very scary thing, that today now everybody, including a laundry guy, knows that in some form or shape he captures data. Right now he only captures how many shirts, trousers, suits, dresses. But if he can also capture the label of those, and if he can match with the profile and everything else, is there a better way to monetize that to those who will like to understand what consumers are wearing and what are the kind of things they use it for longer? So that's one part of it. But I think what's changing when every company becomes a data company is what sets you apart. Also, what's happening relevant from fintech space is there are a lot of new data sets are coming in a manner and in a mode which will get governed very tightly. So for example, all of you would have heard of account aggregator guidelines, where you have financial information providers and financial information users. They can exchange the information through an account aggregator platform which will be regulated. So the data that you generate through any of your financial interaction, be it with insurance company, asset management company, banks, pension funds, all the data you can see it in an aggregated manner. And you can even give permission for an intermediary to use the data to offer you service. Also, I think the bureau data, transaction data, all of that is getting captured at all sources and touch points now. Also, something very interesting happening is very recently you would have read about the National Credit Registry. Now, this is another form of data governance exercise that the government is coming out with, where every single loan before you disburse gets checked with the National Credit Registry. So there's going to be one single uniform source of data through which you will know what kind of exposure an entity or an individual client has. These are some examples. There are obviously many more. But as we start seeing a lot more of data, I think what's happening in a big way is privacy concerns, as you all know, is on rise. Sharing of data is becoming a big, big issue. And there is a permission and a consent-based architecture that's going to come. So companies who are building their business model freely on the use of data. For example, a lot of PFM apps, a lot of lending apps, today they read SMS data and then they populate basis that they build your income profile, your transaction profile, and then they do a credit underwriting. Recently, you would have heard Google has decided to shut that. So I think a lot of businesses which were backed on loosely using the data is going to disappear as we look at the model going forward. Also, the Shri Krishna Commission, which obviously there are a lot of representations, uh, are being made. So I think it's only going to become tougher and tougher for even entities who generate or capture data to build their business model by loosely using that data. What does this all mean? Is that the trust itself will become the new business model. So, how do you redefine your business in the era of trust? And I think that is one of the starting point of even an ecosystem where we talk of innovation and collaboration at the back of data that we all generate. I think the second big thing is the whole world which we call as VUCA, which is a volatile, unpredictable, complex, and ambiguous. I think this is a reality. This is a roller coaster world where strategy itself is in a state of flux. So I don't think if people say they have a strategy, they really have a strategy. Because strategy is something that you decide every day depending on what's happening around you. You cannot even have a quarterly or forget about an annual strategy or a business plan anymore. And I think that is how some of the born digital or a born native digital companies are thinking about. Because every day we learn something new and then we decide how do we bring that learning back into what we do. And I think there is the third thing which is happening is there is a very little control of our own destiny. If someone in the room thinks that you know what you're going to do 1 year from now, let me tell you, you're fooling yourself. Because it's more like you can probably fly an aircraft at 800 kilometer speed of ground level. But come to think of it, if you have to drive a car at a 300 kilometer speed, the only reason is that the friction is too high for you to control the speed and destiny. The third big shift that is happening is the whole customer value chain itself is disrupting. And when I speak about the customer value chain, it's changing because of the change in demographics, because of the changing preference of consumers, because customer itself is very, very whimsical. They may say something, they may mean something. They may do something, they may say something. So it's not about what you think you know about the customer. And I think this changing preference and demographics is creating a very different level of complexity in any of the business we run. Also, the behavior and economic indicators are shifting continuously. A lot of influence around what's happening in other part of the world or what's happening in other part of the business impacts the core business. Attention spans are getting short. Recently, I was reading a wonderful article about why people should not make an investment decision from a smartphone. And time is short, so I can't elaborate on that. But there is a scientific reason that why, if you are looking at making sound financial decisions in your, which is to do with your money, why small screen is not the right place to start. Also, I think we are living in a multi-screen world where it's people keep shifting between a smart TV at home to the gadgets when you are moving to what you do at workplace. So I think also getting your business around the multi-screen world becomes challenge. And every company today, I mean, we heard some today, but every single company today you talk to, they're all becoming tech company. We all keep saying that we are a technology company, we are a data company, but we are also incidentally in financial service. So I think that's how businesses are redefining themselves. And I think when all these changes are happening, what's changing fundamentally is that it's making one organization or entity extremely difficult to capture the entire value. Because there was a time when we always used to think that the value lies in what we build and what we distribute. Come to think of it from very old age, the car, what we buy versus the component that gets into the car. The component manufacturers are different set of people. But it's the car that finally we buy because it's able to assemble all those components, package it in a manner which they can sell. Or probably today what we see closely example is between a platform and a marketplace to the suppliers and the consumers who are there on a platform. Because I think the value is coming now, and it has been coming even in the past in some form. When I gave example of car, was through aggregation of various information, components, products. And I think this is where I say that ecosystem is the only way in which businesses can grow going forward. Because it's proven that an inferior product can survive in a great ecosystem, but a great product will fail to continue to grow if you are not connected or if you are not part of an ecosystem. So fundamentally, what goes on is that When people are looking at things, they are looking at largely an ecosystem. Closer to the example to that is looking at an individual to a family and family to a community. I think there are people and there are individuals and then there are communities and there's a whole lot of difference is because there are people they can grow or they can prosper even during tough times when they are part of a community than if you are just an individual who's going and standing of your own. Also, I think the second big change that's happening is while products generate revenue, it's an ecosystem that creates value. And in long term, when we are looking at our business model, I think we all need to question, are we looking at revenue, which can be short term, or are we looking at value, which is a perpetuity? Ecosystem also obviously helps us bring in more customer stickiness, and it creates data which can be of value to all the participants. Coming closer to now what a successful ecosystem is, I think we all are aware about how some of the platforms and how some of the marketplaces operate. But I think the most important part of an ecosystem is not the ones who are bringing in consumers and the suppliers together. That's what a platform did for quite some time. I think what an ecosystem does is how it brings different market makers together. And when I say a market makers, they are right from government to regulator to those who generate data to those who know how to understand, bring in the kind of components which can find a plug-in into this whole system. And each one creates value and each one gets a share of that value. So I think the models going forward and in each industry today as we look at it, be it healthcare, be it financial service, be it automobile, classic example what we see now, connected cars, they are nothing but example of ecosystem. And globally in each area, there will not be more than 5 to 7 players that will survive because these are the max what an ecosystem can absorb. So I think it's equally important when you're looking at your business models, irrespective of whether you're mature enterprises or whether we are startups or whether you are the market makers, is to say that how do you plug in and add value, create products or solutions which can fit into an ecosystem play. There are three things that comes to my mind when we look at what a successful ecosystem partners do. One is they have obviously a great tech capability. That means it's easy to connect, it's easy to plug in, it can sit anywhere uh, in terms of either this technology, the solution, the infra, ability to connect. The second is the financial model. And I think that is a big change because we all love to capture what we create. I think the ecosystem works where you have to leave money on the table for someone who's coming and working along with you to feel happy about it. The last penny, as they say, should be given to the partner who's coming on the ecosystem and it should not be kept with you. And the third, I think, and the biggest challenge is the belief or the mindset because still a lot of firms and a lot of organizations feel that they can do it all of their own. As we look at this whole journey, just I will come to what at Kotak we are doing in terms of this whole ecosystem. And we have taken a two-pronged strategy. There is a build strategy and there is a orchestrate and participate strategy. When I talk about orchestrate and participate, it's primarily about those who have access to either customers or those who have access to technology or a new business model. How do we power or participate in those? Recently, about a month back, we got into AEPS, which is Aadhaar enabled payment system for the first time. Because for last 2.5 years as a bank, we are very cautious about what areas do we get into. And if we get into those areas, how do we play in a manner where we create scale? Now in last 30 days, we signed up with two large Aadhaar enabled payment systems at the back of what probably all the recent issues on the Aadhaar that you would have heard about. One was with a government, which is a government of Telangana for all their Me Seva Kendra, and the second is with a large PC. Our whole idea was here, we were not front-ending customers and we were okay to not front-end customers. But we said, what can we create in that ecosystem where there are 600 citizen services are rendered to every single citizen of the state or probably through a large network. And today I'm happy to say within 30 days, between these two partners, we do close to over 1 million transactions per month. So I think this is the impact. Our target is to take it to close to 10 million transactions in next about a year. Now, could we have gone and played this game of our own? Answer is no, because a lot of markets where there are consumers, that's not where I am as a bank. Now, I would love to say, hey, listen, I want my customers using my system, my product, my railroads. It doesn't work that way. But at the same time, by building in the platform which can connect seamlessly through the partners, we are able to massively scale up with the partner ecosystem who are managing the front end. The second example I will give you, and why I'm bringing this is it's all about live what we do. We partnered on a Ripple blockchain platform. Now, there's nothing new. I mean, there are a few more players who would have done that. Our question was, if we get onto a blockchain network, what is the right use case and what kind of participants can join on that platform, and that can create an interoperable ecosystem of partner banks and networks. And today we have been able to, within a month of launching that, we are able to launch 2 corridors, including one corridor that we never operated in, that's Israel-India corridor. Now today people sitting in Israel can move money to India at a click of a button. That was not possible earlier. We're getting into close to 20 more such countries that we couldn't have gone directly because they are not among the top 10 or top 15 countries from where you have remittance originating into India. Now, what it does is the ability to connect with the partner networks that we couldn't have reached out. Our ecosystem is helping us build that. The third example is what we started to do was we had built this whole e-commerce space, which what we call today K-Mall. Now, K-Mall is nothing but we connect with a large e-commerce space, the partners, right from Indian Railways to Flight to Flipkarts to ShopClues to GoIBIBOs and you name it, PVR. Now, our whole idea was this is where customers are, but we don't own that part of the journey. But there's somebody else who does that really well. How do we participate, but at the end of it, provide customer a seamless experience? Very soon, we are also going to launch Ola on our platform. Now, the whole idea is that it's not going to replicate the exact app as you would go and experience there, but it will pick up the most important component that a customer likes to do and only provide that what we call POP in our platform. So there is a way in which we participate in external ecosystem. There is a way in which we bring in the external participants into our ecosystem. And it's a two-way journey. The second thing that we have started is we have opened up the series of APIs now. These APIs are accessible through our developer portal. So we had launched during last year's NASSCOM event a developer portal, which any developer, FinTech can go to, can check those APIs. There is a developer sandbox. And you can connect, you can build some solution, you can submit those to us, and you can get started. Now we have seen a great amount of enthusiasm. And the third, what Sunil just mentioned, we took this forward and we said with UPI 2.0 launch, rather than restricting the number of partners who can come and work with us, why don't we create a developer sandbox for UPI and just open it up for anyone and everyone, including individuals, students, anyone to come and work and figure out what they can do with UPI. We partnered with NASSCOM to launch this initiative about 45 days back. And a couple of days back, we just concluded that. A series of 9 amazing winners that we announced. Let me tell you, but everybody else was equally a great find, because the kind of problems that people can solve is amazing. That's not something that we could have thought of. And I think that is where we are seeing the last part, which I would just conclude at, is that there are 2 ways in which we have opened our ecosystem participation. Now we are creating a platform where anyone and everyone can come and create a solution and get access to 16 million customers. So we are going out and showing our intent to be like a Play Store or an App Store for developers. So if you have a solution, say you want to build another Practo, but you know that you don't have probably $100 million of fund to go and launch the product and get those users, you can build a solution like Practo and you can connect to our platform. If you think you have got a tax filing solution, but you don't have access to customers, you can come and connect to our platform. If you have an accounting software and you know you can't compete with Tally, you can come and connect on our platform. So the whole idea is we are giving now everyone an opportunity to connect and participate, and at the same time use our APIs to offer, if you are in B2C space, your products or solutions. I have some time, Sunil, for taking few questions. Perfect.
Yeah, so my question is on the ecosystem development for commercial products. Most of the ecosystem as of today are catering to retail products. Whether in insurance we take Policy Bazaar or CoverFox, they all sell retail motor and health policies. Similarly, in banking, is catering to retail customer. Is there a possibility of creating an ecosystem for commercial products where industries, corporates can come and develop
Brilliant
or
question.
create?
That's the reason when I brought about that accounting software was one example. But we have those APIs now which plugs into the ERPs. We have also now partnered with one of the winners of our fintech was a partner who was building on the GSTN and the supply-based credit and payment solution. So I think there is a scope for people to start thinking. Largely, I would say SMEs is where we see a substantial use case, because I think that area is ripe for players to get into and solve their problems. Large corporates, I would say, important, but large corporates have their own network of suppliers, vendors, and partners. But there it's more about how do we plug it in. But if you have great ideas, we are more than happy to work, because we are looking at both retail and SME ecosystem in a substantial manner. Sure.
Hi.
Hi
So,
Deepak, I'm Sanjay Swami.
Hi, Sanjay.
I'm a VC that invests
I
in
know, I know
fintech
you well.
companies,
So
of course. Thank you. So the question I have is, as investors, we look at startups that are coming, and how does one, you know, uh, work with a bank like Kotak, because yours it's a very large bank, as a startup, but with this as a long-term plan, right? Because doing a hackathon and being one of the selected winners is one thing, but if you have to base your business on something that involves banking and payments, and you know, have you all thought about how this becomes, how this matures over time?
no, so I think hackathon was just one thing, and you are absolutely right. We started our innovation lab about 2 years back, and primarily focused on the whole fintech industry co-creation program. In fact, it's by accident one of the partners who is working with us is sitting right here, who helped us build our entire biometric and 811 backend. This was what, 2 years back? Yeah, more than 2 years. So I think we work today as we speak with more than over 100 startups have integrated themselves with us very, very closely. And every month we onboard close to 8 to 10 startups commercially. So we are not talking here about POCs and all that. And we have a large innovation lab. Some of my colleagues are here too in this room. Venkat, I don't know if he's here in this room. Yeah, so we have a large team, and our whole focus is be it with NASSCOM, with iSpirit, with all the state governments, right from Andhra to Maharashtra to Telangana. I think we work very closely wherever we find there is a large ecosystem played. We work with a lot of VC firms, in fact, very closely, because we realize that VC needs the validation of business model and ideas. And we need comfort that there are great VCs backing them up. So it works as pretty well for us, because lot often I think the biggest worry as a bank we have when we talk to a startup is, are they even going to be in business 1 year from now, right? So when we find who's backing them up, we say we like this company, and as long as you are committed to that model, I think it's a great win-win.
so how is the IP challenging in open innovation and the collaboration ecosystem? Is it challenge or there's nothing to do with the IP or?
No, so this one was a very different theme. Here we didn't set any challenge. What we did was we just made the infra available, because, and I think that was the best thing we did.
No, it's a general question. I understand with
Yeah.
because you mentioned there are a lot of challenges currently in the world, and open innovation and the collaboration ecosystem is the best to solve a lot of problems. In such case, if the world is moving towards it, then how challenging is the IP?
I think that's a brilliant question. I would say that even in China, where I was talking to a lot of players, this is a gray area. But I think this becomes a very prominent question in a more matured ecosystem. I think we are at a stage where we are probably just starting to scratch the surface. But then depending on how you create value, you can even decide how you would like to protect some of these IPs.
Okay, I think I would like to discuss one more point offline because I was confused with the
Sure.
blockchain and the
Maybe
banking
after the
experience.
session we can talk. Thank you.
Deepak, thanks a lot, yeah. But I want to do an informal answer to that last question of yours. The IP stays on the table. That open ecosystem and trust-based model, that's what he talks about. Deepak, thank you very much. Pleasure having you here. Yeah.